Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to Shelf Stories, the channel that tells tales from games, books, and life. And welcome to the One Stop Co-op Shop podcast. Yes, if you are not aware, we do podcast and video show for these chats. So if you're on one, please hop by the other and check out what's going on. So my name is Jason. Thank you so much for stopping by. We have another, I guess this would be an industry nuts and bolts. Let's say that. This is the guts of the industry. This is how we get the games to the table. So a couple of months ago, I had on James Hudson and Danny Lowe, who work for respective companies, and they talked about Kickstarter. They talked about crowdfunding. They talked about bringing games to our table, and we got real honest about their frustrations with the platform, and from as a backer, my things that I was seeing from the outside, and it was a very interesting conversation. So as my friend and I were talking before the call, things have been happening. Moving and shaking has been happening. So I wanted to have this man on. He is the person or one of the people that is on the team responsible for a new crowdfunding platform or an old company, but like a new endeavor within that environment. More crowdfunding. We got more options, people. This is really exciting. And I really want to hear about the moving and shaking that's going on. He is Jason Furie. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason. Always good to hang out. Love your content, so appreciate the opportunity. And a lot of moving and shaking, hopefully both in the right direction. So it's been really fun to be front row for this process. Like you mentioned, Backerkit's been around for a while.
Yep.
Kickstarter's been around for a while. So this is a moment I thought was inevitable. So we're finally here. So I think this is a really exciting time.
Lots of Jasons, lots of moving around, lots of Jasons.
Much like crowdfunding platforms, there's never enough. We just got to keep bringing them into the world. So
absolutely. So let's talk about Backerkit. We've heard this name. Sure. And it's one of those companies. It's one of those brands that we hear about it, but it's in the gears. So it's like we don't know about the cogs and the gears and everything. So talk about Backerkit before this new initiative, and so that how that leads up to the new initiative.
Sure. Well, Backerkit's been around for 10 plus years. It's been in the system for a long time. Most people are familiar with us because if you fill out a survey from backing a crowdfunding project, whether it be through Kickstarter, Indiegogo, what have you, you're probably getting a Backerkit survey. We have a pretty big market share there. A lot of customers, whether they know our name or not, have probably used Backerkit if you pledge for anything on a crowdfunding site.
So talk predominantly a little bit about what it is.
What it is. So predominantly. Okay. Backerkit is a toolkit for once you are successfully funded. So they call it pledge management or a pledge manager. And once you are successfully funded on a crowdfunding campaign, you would use Backerkit to continue the momentum from your campaign. And you do that through opening up a pre-order store right away, sending surveys to your backers to get them to either buy more, give you your shipping costs if you're charging shipping later, correct information from like addresses and stuff like that. So you would give them this backer survey, which is like our most powerful tool before this happened. And that's how you can make sure the right people get the right thing on time, accurately. And a pattern we saw was a lot of people had to become business managers overnight, and that's very challenging. A lot of these teams running games and anything else across category, it's really small teams of people. So we were trying to do a lot of the legwork for you. So we've got your back, we're there, we can help you out, we can organize your data, make CSV imports and exports and all that kind of fun stuff that you just have to own, not so painful because it can be really difficult. So it's both a product, and we're going to focus, on like pledge management and stuff, but it's also like a service. So there's people behind the product that walk people through it and help out. So it's really a great mixture of a tool, like a physical tool that you can use and learn and then continue to use. But it's also our team behind the scenes answering questions. We're always joking that we're basically a consulting service, even though we don't charge for it, but we're always showing people the ropes and stuff like that. And it is all baked into the product. So people have a really good experience, and both creators and backers, not just the creators. We want to make sure that the crowdfunding experience is fruitful and smooth and fun for everybody, because like we'll talk about later, without the backers, it doesn't really mean much. Like if they're not supporting you, your product's not getting made, you're not playing the game. So we really, really like to highlight both experiences from a creator point of view and a backer point of view, so we can have, the best relationship possible. We want you to do it again. We want backers to come back. We want creators to come back. So that's kind of our focus. And then just briefly, we've kind of extended ourselves a little bit to the before you would launch section. We have something called Backerkit Launch, which is us acknowledging the power of the email. If you're a creator, you know this. Social media is great, other things are great, but if you don't have a solid dedicated like email list that you can point people to when you launch your campaign, it's going to be really difficult. My analogy that I always use, which people are getting sick of, is the platforms in a lot of cases are the venue, and it's up to you to bring the party. So you have to bring the people to it. It's not always the platform doing all the work for you, even though some people have that misconception. They think that, oh, the platform's, my thing's cool, the platform's just going to get it funded because it's cool.
If I build it, they will come.
Right. Yeah, it's just not real. That's just not how it works. I would love it if that works, and we can all strive to like push towards that reality, but not there yet. It takes a lot of work from the creator.
Let's absolutely, I want to pause there because I think there is a little bit of a misunderstanding about like, social media ads and, the blast and everything. And, I'm an old Gen Xer, and I remember I've had my email 20 years, but like, you see that the younger people, they might even have email. Right. Or they didn't even know email. So, right. Okay, well, just text me or whatever. But like, you're saying that, no, hold on a second. let's not throw away this tool. So like in terms of the actual, like, exchange, like emails and email blasts and, all that kind of stuff, that's really, really important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And putting on my marketing hat for a little bit, I think one of the main reasons it might sound obvious, but it doesn't seem obvious based on just interacting with different creators and people over time. Email is still one of these old school marketing strategies that still works, even right. with all the advancements in technology and phones in our pockets and doing what we're doing right now. Email is still king because it is something that you have to at least delete or unsubscribe from or interact with in some way throughout your routines. Social media algorithm might completely miss it. Sure, there's spam folders and stuff like that, but statistically speaking, let's say open rates are decent. You have to at least say no thanks or not right now, or maybe I'll get back to it later. So it's always kind of in your mind. So we've just been researching this just year after year after year, listening to creators. How do you leverage this? How often do you message them? What kinds of things? How many images are involved? So we really try to fine tune all of those learnings and put it into the product and have things that work for everybody that, ultimately gets you to the page, gets you to purchase the item, gets you to interact in some way with the creator. But yeah, if there's one thing I can say, and like we're about to cut out and be like, emails are powerful. And then I get like, I can't stress that enough. Everything I do day in and day out with Backerkit, a lot of it hinges on that. And it's not just the email, it's the relationships that you've built with people to get the email. I'm assuming you've established trust enough to get that email. And that's, personal information. That's something that's sacred. You want to take care of it and treat it right. But it's really the people behind the email. And that's just one of the gestural things they're doing, saying like, yeah, I think you're cool, or I think this product's cool. Sign me up. And then it's now your job to sell them and push them forward and convince them that the game is something that they want on their table.
We're absolutely, this whole conversation is going to revolve around trust, revolve around creator trust, revolve around consumer trust. I just want to set the scene a little bit more in terms of the nuts and bolts and make sure we're kind of like everybody in the audience on the same page. Okay. So like it started as a pledge manager, right? And we're aware of pledge manager, like, it ends, they don't disappear. Like you have to do your pre-orders, you have to, see where things are and check the address and everything. So like that. So Backerkit filled in a lot of that stuff. And now there's this additional piece of like, the pre and like getting the word out beforehand. So then now that's very much like kind of back end, right? And creators really need to know this stuff in order to launch. But, for us people, it's just like a click and we move on with our lives. What we as consumers are very interested in is obviously the actual thing that's happening and, the project, right? And how can I press my buttons and, I'll pay my money. And you've gotten into that. Backerkit has gotten into that too. So talk a little bit about that, because it was quite the announcement. Like it was very much like it definitely felt like okay, this was cooking for a very, very long time. So is that did I get the right impression then?
I think so. And I think a few like housekeeping things is, Kickstarter has been doing this for a really long time. Their leader, we think Kickstarter is awesome. They're ecosystem friends. We personally know a lot of people that work there. Our business has depended on them being successful. Sure. So we were wanting to be successful alongside with them and give creators tools that would help empower them to make the cool stuff that big manufacturers wouldn't commit to without big down payments or whatever. So yeah, you could say this journey started the minute the company started, because what the company does, and one of the reasons I work at Backerkit, I've been there for about 5 years. During a time I started when I wasn't actively looking for jobs. I was happy just being an artist, working at comic shops and making ends meet, but it's really all about the creator and what the creator needs, and being able to adapt in an environment, because their needs are constantly evolving and constantly changing. So we're always listening. We always like to tell people that we don't invent anything. We just listen to creator experiences and backer experiences. We look for patterns within those experiences, and we try and create product around those experiences and those patterns to help enable the next person in line to be successful. So of course, if someone has a problem and it's really niche or small, and it's just like, oh, that we can help you, but that's not like a big problem that we see, we can kind of help. But if it's something that like time and time again, oh, this really helps, like add-ons, for example, that wasn't a thing. That's something that like got added later, but Backerkit's been doing it all along because we know people wanted it. Creators asked for it, backers asked for it, so we create it. So really that journey to getting to a crowdfunding platform is we're kind of like surrounding the castle a little bit, where we've got the end covered and it's really solid, and we've kind of like stretched that as far as it can go and at least got it to a comfortable place. And then we kind of looped around to the beginning and we're stretching that and getting to a really comfortable place. And then there's that middle section that isn't really innovating that much. So the complexity of the projects that are launching on this platform, their needs are getting more complicated. The ebbs and flows of how they sell their product and make their product is getting more complicated. So we need to listen and figure out how to help them. So the current platforms haven't really addressed a lot of those ebbs and flows that we see with our creators to help that middle part be more innovative.
So let's talk about the middle part. The middle part is, launch and, and all the interaction that happen. So like you said, it's getting more complicated. So I think back to like the beginning of crowdfunding, like we're talking Alien Frontiers, the original board game that was backed. And Kickstarter has always done a lot of different things. We just from board gaming, we know that. And then there was some evolution, and then, big projects like Kingdom Death Monster and Exploding Kittens came out. And then, like there's a lot of like benchmarks, like Blood Rage was also a big one early. So then these aren't like little games. I mean, these are pretty, complex and good games, and they stand up today. So help us understand in a concrete way how today's games need more than those games.
Right. So I think, I've seen some of your past interviews. I know you understand this, but just for the sake of the conversation, a lot of the reason why tabletop game makers get into crowdfunding to begin with is because the things that they want to make, it's becoming increasingly difficult to pitch that to a manufacturer or a company, or sell it to a licensed agency or something like that. Right. To make these cool games that we're playing, this whole wave of like indie games that maybe evolve into being bigger games that you see at Target and whatever, big box stores. But like crowdfunding really enables those people to make exactly what they want. Sure. Whether it's the miniatures, whether it's the rule set, the books, the subject matter, there's so many things that it takes to do this. So crowdfunding is really like, it's a great marketing tool too, because you get to validate your product before you even make it. So you can launch a project and be as confident as you want. But once you hit that launch button, it's up to the backers to say yes or no at that point. So really, it's a priceless opportunity for you to gut check yourself. And obviously, you're doing that when you're play testing, and you're doing that with your email marketing and your social media and stuff like that. But the true test is, it's one thing to get an email. It's another thing to get someone to open up their wallet and support you and share your project and play your game. So I think it's really important to listen to what new games, how is the gaming industry like pushing those boundaries? What's the next wild idea around the corner? Because my theory is they're always going to be going to something like crowdfunding, because the big industry hasn't changed that much as far as like pitching. Like I've got a lot of game ideas. I can't just be like, hey, Target, I got an idea for you. It's just not going to work. There's a process, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of time. So I think it's just really important for us to respond to that and listen to that. And a lot of this hinges on pre-existing relationships we've had with these creators. A lot of these companies you mentioned, like I know Kingdom Death and Exploding Kittens, for example, and tons of other big ones, they've been using Backerkit for years and years and years on multiple projects. So it's really we just listen to them and listen to their needs. And the reason for jumping into this, which I know we'll talk about more in a little bit, isn't us just being like, we want a piece of the pie, we're going to jump in. It's listening to our creator base, and they're asking for it. They want alternatives. They want to know, can somebody else listen to this weird idea, and can someone else iterate on the way this works and help me out and like offer these new features or these new opportunities, not just for them, but for their backers and their communities. So it's really important. I hate to say that we're leveraging those relationships. We're just continuing it. And we're just, that's why it wasn't that hard to convince a lot of people to use it. Like, we have a really solid lineup of creators. And it's really just continuing a discussion, not activating a new one. It's more just like, we're doing this thing now. Are you interested? What would you do if we did this? And we got resounding feedback just from people saying, if you do this, we're in. If you do this, we're in. If you do this, we're in. So
literally, I think 30 plus companies that, because you launched, they had that website and you have your blog, and it's just like company, and it's like big ones, like you say before, Restoration Games, Cephalophair Games, and a lot of other, companies. It's like, oh, wow, this is like a serious business. And it was, it wasn't like a fly by night. My Backerkit's been around for a long time. So then let's get into that. Let's get into like the different, how needs changed. And one of the things that Danny and James talked about is the evolving nature of consumers, right? And consumers have changed a little bit. I think like consumers are a little bit, I mean, you get them on a certain day, they'll give you like certain words. On other days, they'll give nicer words. But like,
word of the day,
consumers have gotten a little bit more. Have they learned to expect more? Let's say that. I think in the beginning,
more savvy.
Okay, that's another one. Okay, no, they've gotten more savvy. They've got, because in the early days, it's like, okay, wow, you could, like, Adam Pooz didn't even have a game designed. Like, it was just a bunch of art, and then we trusted him. Yeah, I mean, the concepts were there, but it wasn't like today's games where it's like a Simon will just like lay down, here's the game, right? And it was not like that back then. And I think there's more of a need to have like the almost finished game as an example. So then
that's a great question. Yeah, this is a very interesting topic to me, because I've been in the industry for so long and I've been backing games for so long. I think there's not a lot. I mean, there's gray area, but like what you're alluding to is there's this sell the concept and the idea via renders and prototypes and being scrappy, entrepreneurial, putting it together. I could do this and more if you just help me out, versus this game is complete, shrink wrap, ready to go. We just need you to hit a button with very predictable, like, these are the stretch goals. They're going to hit them all. And it's just a matter of watching the ball drop like it's New Year's, and it's just like, it's going to happen. There's, no matter what we do, it's going to happen.
And that latter thing has happened more and more. And I think the expectation is more and more.
Yeah, I might not be the best person to talk about this, because I like the old way. I really appreciate, I'm a big champion for first-time crowdfunding creators. Some of my favorite things to do at Backerkit is help empower, provide resources, run live streams, have discussions with folks that are embarking on this for the very first time. They see other companies do it. Maybe it looks easy. They're like, I have ideas, I can do it. I really, really pride myself on focusing on that segment of creator to make sure that they don't go down the same paths that some of the other people did that led to an unsuccessful project. We want to make sure that they're set up for success. But then, on the other hand, I'm a big dork, and I love like the X-Men Simon project. I skipped the first one for Marvel United because my wallet. And then the second one, they had to bring the X-Men in. So I did a double all-in pledge as if I just backed them both anyway. So they totally can get me too. Like, even though I really like the spirit of that scrappy first-time project, I do like the big box, straight to manufacturing products too. So I guess my short answer is there is room for both of them. It's just about listening to the unique needs of each creator, because they're very different across categories, across experience levels, across how many projects have you run, what's your target audience, stuff like that. I think there's room for all of it. But it's really, really important for us to not just become a company that will help facilitate the bigger people to get bigger. We want newcomers into the scene. We want to, they're kind of, it's like, you're the future, kids. Like, I want to see the next weird idea come to fruition. I think it's really important to keep that sharp and keep people putting out weird ideas, putting weird games out there. Even if they're hit or miss, it's like we're trying to do something new. Otherwise, we're just going to a store and we can just kind of it's just really predictable. So I like that element of unpredictability if possible, and I want to hear people's weird ideas and see how we can make it work.
Right.
Like I'll give you one example: is someone wants to crowdfund a pasta cart that, and I'm just like, let's figure it out, let's make it work. And it's all about expectation setting, figuring out what your goals are, and being very realistic about it based off historical data, patterns, and your expectations.
Expectation setting. Let's talk about that. Let's drill down, because so here's where Danny and James, I believe, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but in terms of just kind of like translating what they were saying, so that it became more difficult to set expectations properly in Kickstarter's ecosystem, right? So because the communication was difficult. Like, I mean, we could talk about moderation, how like the loudest voices tended to kind of penetrate, and use the loudest voices were people with expectations. Right. Okay. This project should have been this. This project should have been that. And it's like, it's hard to, cut through that noise when, you can't moderate those tools. And also just in terms of just general transparency. So it's like, maybe there's an issue, contacting Kickstarter directly. That became very difficult. Right. So it's like, so they have a particular thing. Kickstarter is huge. So it's like, okay, who do I contact? And, this thing, is going a little bit wrong. I need to communicate Kickstarter. I need to communicate to the backers that I'm communicating with Kickstarter, fixing a problem. And those like interactions all became over time, a little bit of gun got in the system. I think that's fair to say. So talk a little bit about it. I mean, because you're watching this, is that an assessment that you agree with? And if so, was that a thing that was a factor in launching the new project?
Yeah. So I think I definitely agree with the sentiments that you're saying. Like it is becoming increasingly hard, and it's not always a direct reflection of Kickstarter, because sometimes it's like, think about how many people launch projects on Kickstarter versus how many people work at Kickstarter versus this or that. So I can see how it would get difficult. It's like, trying to get somebody at some, big box store or online
like
site to help you out and get a human on the voice. Like sometimes it's hard, but what I will say is, yes, like it is that small percent of people, they speak very loudly and their expectations are usually off, because it's one thing to teach someone about just crowdfunding in general, and another one about production cycle, and another one about budgeting and margins. Like, you don't really want to swim in the mud about all the nuts and bolts about what it takes. You just want to set realistic expectations, as in your funding goal or your delivery dates, and have real estate on your site to be very transparent with your backers about not only how crowdfunding works, but how this specific project's going to work. And then also how you work. Like, maybe you have kids at home or a lot of responsibility, or you have something going on. So it's like, there's a human element to it that we often forget. Like, I always joked, it's like, next time I run a Kickstarter campaign or a crowdfunding campaign, my updates are just going to be like hyper real. And it's just going to be like, no update this week. I was hungry and I went to Disneyland. Like, it's like, it's just, people are people, and we don't really talk about that much.
Right,
so,
yeah.
But the dad advice I always give people is, disappointment's just friction with expectation. And we see it time and time again, not just in crowdfunding, but just anything in life. Like, I thought it was going to be this way, but it happened that way. I'm angry, so I'm going to go on this platform and talk, and the creator can't really do anything about it because I gave him $1. So now I just get keys to the castle. And I've run 3 crowdfunding projects myself, and my first one was very politically loaded and kind of like we had a lot of trolls on our project.
What was the project, if I can ask?
So the very first Kickstarter project I ever ran was a little over 5 years ago, for a comic book with my brother. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Pepe the Frog.
Yes, of
the
course.
Meme.
I'm well aware.
So my brother created that character way back in the day. So he's the artist that created Pepe in a zine called Boys Club in San Francisco. Just two people living in San Francisco voting for like Bernie. So it's like, but then in 2016, it got twisted up and turned around, and it got political, and the alt-right tried to just totally train wreck it. So we're like, hey, like, I don't think it's a lot of people, because the headlines are so juicy. Everyone's just going to hate this forever. So let's just do a Kickstarter campaign for the people that get it. And it was just called Save Pepe. And it was just this nice, like, we'll do another zine for you because you care. And we're like, it'll be like 100 people. Who knows how many people, because the hate was so strong that we just couldn't fight it. 2 people, So we're like, all right, let's just put at least there's a statement from the creator saying, hey, I'm just a chill dude living in San Francisco. This frog I made for my friends and copied them at like Kinko's and passed them out at art shows. And then it got turned into a hate symbol. So that had some pretty heavy moderation needs that just didn't really, not much. I couldn't do much about it other than like say, hey, some stuff would disappear magically because I think someone was watching it, like it was really rancid or hit some algorithm or something. But yeah, just didn't have a lot of control over the conversations there. And it wasn't like a wild like troll party or anything like that, but that was going on like outside of Kickstarter for the most part.
I mean, like when it comes to this ecosystem of cultivating community, any little thing can disrupt that ecosystem. And we talked about trust. Right. I mean, trust is so fragile. So like, even if it isn't like a wash in negativity or whatever it is, even that little bit can upset the apple cart. So will Backerkit offer moderation tools or improve moderation tools?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can confidently say 100% that that's going to happen. But to me, the crowdfunding ecosystem, especially when we're talking about moderation, tools that the creators can use, tools that the backers can use, especially to build community while you have a campaign going on. Like, you want to talk and interact and give them a say, because a lot of backers are living vicariously through the creator. And they're like, they kind of want to create something soon. So they want to get in on the experience. Some people just want the thing too, and that's totally cool. But yeah, so right now, the way it works, just to like, if there's any like a misconception, right now we're in a private beta phase. So anybody can back a project, but the creators that we're picking right now are people that are pretty close to us. We have working relationships with them. They've used Backerkit historically, or they've expressed very specific interest in running a project on something other than an existing platform. So we do have a team that kind of hand selects those and works with them and like sets those expectations. And then as far as moderation goes, it's not a huge issue immediately because everybody that's using it, those 30, 50 plus projects that are committed to using it, they're all getting matched up with a handful of us. And we're watching all of these projects like a hawk. So they're going to get the red carpet. So if you're an early adopter, you're gonna get a lot of staff members helping you out. I'm on a team personally where I'm working with, I think 7 or 8 projects right now that are launching within the next few months. And I talk to them every day. Like it is totally like a very just, back and forth. What do you need? How can we help you? Oh, what do you want to experiment with? How can we help you do that? Like what's something missing? So it's not immediately an issue, but what happens is we're going to be watching these projects very closely. We're going to be introducing a lot of new moderation tools and options, or just things that backers can do. They can start their own threads, for example. We can run polls, for example. You can comment and rate stuff and all that. So we're very experimental right now, testing a lot of new things and keeping a close eye on how backers interact with them and how creators can interact with them and how that kind of symbiotic relationship can thrive a little bit better. So unfortunately, it's a to be determined. But I think the key message here is that it's constantly evolving. And I think that's part of the problem. I think that's why we're in the situation we're in. In my opinion, my biased opinion, the platform that's going to succeed the most understands that it's up and down and up and down. And it's going to change. And I think one of your things we were talking about earlier was like, what's your 5-year plan, or where do you see this coming in the future? Like, I think it would be a mistake to identify that, quite honestly, because we can't see around the corner just yet. I think it's really important to listen to the creators, how they interact with their backers, keep a close eye on it, and then create tools based on their needs as they crop up. Not that, I mean, that's not saying there aren't obvious things that need to be done, like within content moderation and having the creator have choice over some of those elements. But I can't articulate them yet because we haven't like released it to the wild yet. It's still a very like hand-holdy experience right now, which is good because that's how we learn and that's how we can like help the best in this moment while it's 30 people. When the door blows open a bit, we're gonna have very similar challenges that other platforms have because it can get out of control. That's totally reality.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as long as I think for me, the key is you're listening. Like, and I think that was the message that the creators that I spoke with before, like they didn't feel like Kickstarter was quote unquote listening, or at least in terms of that specific end of things, because, Kickstarter, what's the good thing about Kickstarter, right? We're not just going to bash here. Like we're trying to be analytical here. The best thing about Kickstarter, according to these creators, is the visibility. right? I mean, it's basically a Kickstarter is to crowdfunding, like Kleenex is to tissue, right? It's just a Xerox is to copiers, right? It's a branded thing. Right. So it's like if something's on Kickstarter, then it's like, okay, it's already branded in the person's mind. And also they have, you mentioned before the email, but like there's a lot that Kickstarter does in terms of keeping and maintaining and nurturing that big community, a very, very big community of people. So it's like, going on to another crowdfunding, taking all, let's say a creator has done a bunch of stuff for Kickstarter. It's scary for them to go to another platform because will the people follow? Will they find new people to replace the old people that have been left behind? Is that a conversation that is happening amongst the creators that you've spoken with so far?
Absolutely. And I think some of this is maybe just, I don't know, I'm not sure what the word is, but sometimes I'll talk to creators that like what I said at the beginning of the interview is they think that Kickstarter is going to do most of the work for them. And there is this magical algorithm that people talk about, and we can guess exactly how it works. I think I've cobbled together kind of how it works, but a lot of it is still heavily reliant on you giving it that first injection of community. Like you have to have those folks lined up somehow, whether it's your YouTube channel, your Discord channel, your email list, whatever, a combination of all of them, going to conventions a lot and building relationships. Like all of these things have to come together to give you, you hear it all the time, I'm sure, first 48 hours of crowdfunding campaign are the most important.
Yeah, it's projects we love. You got to get on projects we love. Yeah.
Totally, which that's a whole nother discussion. I don't know. I haven't seen that really affect anything. It's more just like a acceptance, like a subconscious, like acceptance kind of like, does mom and dad like what I'm doing? Like, yes, keep going. I was like, oh, okay. So it's more of an internal motivator, in my opinion. I don't think it really moves the needle on projects.
Interesting. Okay.
You can challenge that, but I'm not sure.
Some people really swear by that. Like I've heard another creator. I won't say what their name is, but I've said like, okay, if they're one of their goals is to get on the projects we love. And if you don't know what that is, projects we love is, you log on to Kickstarter.com. They have the splash page, like, okay, here's a bunch of stuff. And then there's, project we love. And there's like 3 or however many projects that are, funded, they're funded fast, they're funded whatever. And, that apparently helps with visibility past that initial burst. I don't know. You're skeptical.
Maybe. I'm very skeptical. If I could choose to have it or not have it, I'd take it. It looks good. It's platform validation, and it can help in ways that aren't trackable, if you know what I mean. Like, oh, if I trust the platform and the platform trusts this creator, yeah, sure, it's worth my money. So like, I totally get that. And I think gesturally, it's nice. I just don't think it's going to do it. In my experience, people that fixate on the projects we love button are typically not asking the right questions or doing the right things to set them up for success. They're focusing on something that's very tangible and that has a very tangible outcome. Like, I got the button or I don't get the button. So once you get the button, okay, you got it. Now what? Well, I don't know. I don't know what's next. I got the button. So it's just like, I usually kind of try not to focus on that much. Like, I think there's more to it than that. And I think that can be challenged, sure. But I don't know, I've run 3 projects. One of them didn't get it and it made the most money. So I personally, I don't see any difference. And then we see it with projects all the time. Like some really big, cool projects don't get it. And the time I got it was, I was just like on the phone with somebody and they're like, oh, you want it? You got it. I'm just like, oh, okay. It's like, cool. So I don't know.
Let's get back to the community aspect. Like you were saying, you were beginning to answer the question in terms of how, like, if you're going to go to a new platform, how do you bring all of that community that's baked in the Kickstarter? You were saying about like, with the legwork, with the YouTubes and the Discords and the appearances and the conventions, like people don't need to be scared of that. Is that kind of where you were going with that?
Yeah, as far as like, you're asking if creators are hesitant too about like, oh, if I just run this on Kickstarter, it'll just do better because it's a household name and like how, like, so the assumption is that what I'm saying is a lot of it is you're bringing that initial burst of people to the platform. So you need to trust that and kind of like your audience will go with where you go. And you got to remember, we're in the beta now and everybody that's using it has used Backerkit to a degree. So they're technically already Backerkit customers. They've already filled out a survey through Backerkit. They're already, whether they're familiar with it as like a household name or not is, whatever, 50-50 maybe. But a lot of the creators are like, oh, well, they've all used it. They know, they've gone through the survey, they've used your pre-order store. Like they've already kind of used it, maybe in a more like passive way or something like that. Not, you know, obviously not the campaign, but a lot of people weren't super worried about that, unless they were on the side where they thought Kickstarter was totally responsible. We could have a whole separate discussion about like ref tags and like where those come from. Cause you know, you can check the back end and you can see like, oh, it says it was through the nav bar, through the newsletter we put out.
Right, you can find where they're coming from.
I think that'd be a separate, I'm not super capable of like picking that apart. I have opinions about it, but I think the best I could say about it is it might be a little misleading sometimes. So I want to make sure that people are owners of their own destiny in the sense that they understand the data that they're getting with these campaigns, and not, you know, it shouldn't be super confusing where traffic's coming from. Something that we're working on behind the scenes a lot is those ref tags and referral, like where the traffic's coming from. That's super important, because those are the patterns that matter when it comes to reaching your funding goal. Like there could be a wild card, like a press release worked really well, and then it was on Polygon, and then it went to here, and then it went to here. So we can learn from that and then try and set people up for success. I'll give you one quick example. I actually ran the third project on Backerkit for an enamel pin project. I did pizza enamel pins that come in little pizza boxes, which is, I got the prototype of it too. It's really cool. Little box here. But
if you look at the podcast, it is a tiny box with a little box. It looks like a pizza box, and it just opens and it's there. It's just a little pizza box.
You can hear it. Yes, the 3D. People on Sonar, they can't visualize it in 3D. But yeah, basically my point is that it's really important to see where that stuff comes from. And a lot of that, I think, you know, we talk about press releases and creators working together. I did a cross promotion with another creator that was had a project while mine was going on. And we just put our heads together and started like sharing ways that we could share each other's project. And, you know, whether it's through the survey, whether it's through updates, whether it's through a cool like giveaway, we just started experimenting with a bunch of stuff, and Backerkit was totally cool with it and helped build tools around what we wanted to do and just kind of listen to that experience. And for me, it was really fruitful, because something that I'm trying to create through this platform is ways for bigger, more established creators to connect with maybe first time, more novice creators and kind of help them through the journey. So if we can help facilitate the partnering of projects, like, you know, I know, you know, there's a Gloomhaven project coming out with like miniatures of Gloomhaven, and that team's very expressed quite a bit that they want to make sure this is a platform for everybody, not just big ones like themselves, because they were small at one point too. So they have a lot of empathy for that type of creator. So if I could match that company with 2 or 3 smaller companies and they can kind of cross promo each other, obviously the needle's going to go more one side than the other. But it's just that like raising up that I think we need more of. Like a lot of creators, once they reach success, they might just be too busy, or they might not have time, or they just might not have the skills to cross promote, or you know, because it's a very busy lifestyle. And there's not a ton of profit for a lot of people, even if it seemingly is really great publicly. There's so many costs involved and so many like
and there's so much fewer attention available. So like, you know, back in the day you had 10 projects. Like I remember Gloomhaven launched. There was Gloomhaven and 7th Continent, and those are the 2 big projects that were there.
Right.
And there was a couple of others. I think there's a Abyssal something or other, but like it wasn't a lot. Like nowadays, or maybe like, you know, 2019 would be like the peak of Kickstarter. Like, you know, you could log on and have like, you know, watch your wallets. You know, you can have like literally $1,000 worth of options plus. So the mind share is limited. So I can see some creators at least, you know, it's like, you know, if I help this person, that, you know, am I kind of giving attention away? Am I gonna, you know, is there only so much attention to go around, so to speak? So a little bit of a hunkering down effect. Not that that's inevitable, but like I can see some people getting into that mindset. Clearly you are in a different direction.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's totally real. There's, I mean, right now it's great because you go browse on Backerkit, it's a manageable amount of projects, but you know, we hope that kind of gets larger and more people come to the party here. But yeah, on Kickstarter it's very similar. I back stuff across all categories, across all projects, and there's a handful every day that I would love to back, but it's just so overwhelming. It's like the streaming wars. It's like, how do you even decide what to watch anymore? There's way too much going on. Like people are like, Netflix is going down. I'm like, really? Everyone's talking about it all the time. It's just, there's just a billion shows. So we can't, you know, Back in the day, there was like 4 shows on at any given time, and that was it. So we could talk about MASH or something, but now it's just impossible. So I think
even
there's something
Netflix,
similar going on.
When Netflix was the only streaming service, it was like, this is nice. They have The Office, they have whatever. And now it's like, where's The Office? Where's this? Where's that?
They just juggle them all around. Yeah.
So
but for crowdfunding, it's similar because there's so many categories, there's so many things on offer, and it's very, something that Kickstarter has really helped enable is how accessible it is to a lot of people. Like, you can follow resources, follow guides, and launch your project without a lot of blockers. Like, nobody's telling you no. You just kind of go through the motions, follow the rules. You can launch your project. Whether you're ready or not is a different story. But it's very accessible for people. It's really attractive, especially now with the state of the world and everything being in flux. I think people want to be owners of their destiny a little bit more these days. So crowdfunding is, in my opinion, almost a greater opportunity than it's ever been. So I'm really excited that we're like jumping in at this point, because we're just seeing a lot more people saying, you know what, I've always wanted to do this thing or make this thing. Now's the time. So we kind of want to be there when that happens, because we're just seeing that pattern more and more and more. A lot of newcomers coming into the scene, even though it's been around for over a decade.
So there's Backerkit. We also have GameFound, and we also have a bunch of other different competitors. And I don't want to go into the weeds of like each one, but I think there's one that really leaps out in terms of a distinction. So GameFound is a dedicated board gaming site. It's owned by a board gaming company. They put out board games and all that kind of stuff. And it works for some people, and some people are comfortable with that. So then, and I talked to Creator about this, like why Backerkit was so attractive was because of the cross promotion. I can get little pizza boxes. I can get comic books. I can get, and so what that Creator wanted was that cross pollination, not just between big and small creators, but the different weird projects that, like, if I'm coming and I want to back Shiny D20, then there's a board game next to it. Maybe there's cross-pollination.
Right.
So is that simply a kind of style and taste thing, which is okay? Or are there like real numbers to back up the fact that, like, if someone backs a Shiny D20 project, they're more likely to back a board game?
Yeah, I don't have like hard data across that, but I will say that I totally agree with your sentiment of, I think one of the things that will help us stand out in comparison to GameFound, for example, is that it's every category. Any weird idea you've got, go for it. And the pizza boxes, for example, some of the best audiences that I shared that with, like, they're people that are really into board games and video games and comic books and art. So like, it wasn't exclusive to any one category. And there is a lot of cross-pollination like that. Like, I don't back just board games. I get some people are just gamers for life and that's it. There's nothing else in the world. And I totally respect that. But yeah, I think there is, that was a discussion that the team had like about how to approach that. And I think it was pretty unanimous that it's for everybody. Like, we want to make, we want cool things put in the world by cool people, and we don't want to put any limitation on what that cool thing is.
Right.
That said, I can see a marketing advantage or a company advantage to kind of tunnel visioning one category, because then you can iterate and kind of change and listen and respond just with that one focus instead of having to go across the board. But I think we'd be doing ourselves a disservice if we just kind of picked one category and just went to town with it. I think it'd be interesting to let the creators decide what the most popular categories are, and we can look for those patterns. So it's a really interesting time for publishers, both for books and comics, like the Brandon Sanderson novels that he worked with Backerkit. He did the 4 books he wrote during the pandemic, and it was the #1 by far Kickstarter project. We had a front row seat to that. He used Backerkit before he even launched. He agreed to it. We had a plan with him, and that was just beyond our wildest expectations, but that was fantastic. And it's just a testament to hopefully books. I want books to come back a little bit, and just, people are reading and creating comic books. I'm a big advocate for comic books as well. I've worked at comic store for years and years and years. So I just love seeing those. And yeah, most comic book readers I know also play video games. Most comic store or board games, most comic book stores you go to also sell board games or magic cards or RPG dice. There's all kinds of cross promo there. So yeah, to answer your question, I think it's great to just look for those patterns, and we'll be in control of the data a little bit more and can probably have cooler insights on what that exactly is as we mature the platform.
So there's not a lot of available data right now. It's more of just like there's something we're observing, and it makes sense, and we'll see.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what, going back to the competition aspect. The competition of like, okay, here's one company that's doing it one way. Here's one company doing it another way. Third company doing it a third way, and let the best company. Well, actually, I'll ask that in this way. So, like, do you see it as a competition? Do you see it as like the best company wins, so to speak? I guess I have capitalism on the brain, because that's kind of like,
you do.
Like
that's
the I know I need to unplug there. But is that is that a thing that you're looking for? Is like, are you looking to outcompete GameFound? Are you looking to outcompete? Is market share a limited resource, and you're going for the biggest slice of the pie possible, or is it another way to think about it?
I think there's another way to think about it. I think it would be pretty unhealthy to approach it from that angle, like a competitive angle, because then it's just like a Tom and Jerry episode or something. You're just trying to one up each other, and then the more that you try and go back and forth, the creator experience and the backer experience can get blurry, and you can start to ignore. It's like parents fighting, and then they ignore the kids. Like, we keep all eyes on the creator experience and the backer experience, and we go where they go. So if they want to go with Backerkit, we help them. If they want to go with Kickstarter, we help them. If they want to go with GameFound, they want our help for some way, we'll help them. It's not really about choose us over them or this or that. Obviously, as a company, we would like them to use Backerkit as this grows, and of course, we would want the market share and all that stuff, but not at the expense of like a battle or trying to downplay other platforms or anything like that. Like, it's an ecosystem. We can all be friendly. I think competition is very healthy in almost any of these endeavors. I think crowdfunding specifically, there hasn't been a big key player in a long time. Some would argue ever, that could go up against the effectiveness of Kickstarter. But in my 5 years at Backerkit, obviously I have faces and names and people I consider family working there. So I'm very biased, but this is the team that can do it. They're very compassionate. They're very smart. They're very forward thinking. They're very empathetic for not only just the human condition, but like the experience of crowdfunding. Everybody that's come through this door has just been such an amazing person to meet, that when this was announced, like, to an official capacity, I'm like, this makes sense. And I'm super glad I'm here to witness like this where I'm at, because it's less than 50 people right now over there. It's a very scrappy team. Like, people are just really, really focused and really dedicated. So I have a lot of trust in that. So I'm really eager to see how this thing grows. Like a lot of people are.
Yeah, I mean,
but I have a lot of faith in it.
It's funny because it's like, you use words like compassion. Like, I'm a compassionate person, compassion focused. I practice compassion focused therapy as a psychotherapist. I mean, these are not words I'm used to. Right. And compassion for me, and empathy, in these words, these are the things that need to happen in order to do community. Right. That's at the end of the day what what needs to be. So it's like Kickstarter, they say it. They like that, it's in there, like, we're for the creator and we're for the community, but like the actions aren't quite matching up. GameFound is doing its own thing, right? And I don't necessarily like, they're not going to turn down community, but it isn't like kind of a front facing thing over there. I think it's more like, excellence and all these great projects and everything. I think in terms of the, like, what you're offering, like, you're going to come here, into this Backerkit, and you're going to just, I don't know, like, be hugged and kissed and be, I don't know, have your needs listened to, like that. That's such a fuzzy thing. Sure. But, with years of background, that's kind of what you're, putting your chips on, right?
Yeah, we've been doing that for years. Like, anyway, like, we work in parallel with customers, and the trust we have with our customers is priceless, because the product doesn't exist without them and their input and the communities that they're bringing to the table. Like I said earlier in the conversation, we're not inventing these things. We're listening and reacting. So we're not just being like, I think it'd be good to do add-ons, or I think it'd be a good idea to do this new email strategy. It's not us just like having a think tank and coming up with these ideas. It's creators telling us. And even crowdfunding by Backerkit is a handful of creators that we had really good relationships with saying, you should do this because it will help us bring to fruition what we're working on in a way that we would like to move forward. So it's really just maintaining that trust and continuing that momentum with our community, while hopefully getting more and meeting new people, keeping the door wide open to anybody that wants to bring their ideas to life. I think it's just really important. And I'm not going to say everyone's going to get the full red carpet like they're getting now, because we're in a beta phase, but hopefully the things we learn, the patterns we identify are going to be best practices moving forward, where people can have, it's kind of like starting the game ahead, like having a little bit of a head start. We want to make sure that all of those things are shared across the board, not held tight. We're not super interested in like, oh, it really worked for this creator, let's keep it secret so we can do it again next time, but bigger. It's like, open the floodgates, let everybody else do their version of that, and see. So it's more about creating a menu of options for creators to take hold of, instead of like just single paths, like you have to go down this ride this way,
Right. Okay. So let's talk about the companies that have signed on. So I'm trying to look for the blog over there, but there's a lot of them that have logged on. So we mentioned Restoration and Cephalophair. What are some of the other bigger companies that gamers would know they're going to launch projects on crowdfunding?
Well, if we're talking about gamers, you mentioned the big ones. I think the Miniatures of Gloomhaven is going to be big. We've got Unstable Games coming out with a yet to be announced title, I believe. Monty Cook Games, Restoration Games, Maestro Media, Leader Games, who I'm working with now. We're doing some custom art for Gen Con with them as well. That's going to be really cool.
Oh, Leader Games is big, yeah.
Yeah, Root, Oath, stuff like that. Thundergriff, let me see, I got a list here. Greater Than Games. We've got Tuesday Night Games, Exalted Funeral, which is running a campaign right now for Land of Eam, a really cool new family-friendly RPG. Ninth Level Games. Roll and Play actually ran one, and it's already come and gone. XYZ Game Labs, who I've got friends with over there. And I think that's like most of them, but there's still a lot more coming out. The next, I think, actually, I can't say that one yet. I don't want to slip. I think one of them's not official, but I'm very excited about it. So I got to bite my tongue a little bit. But so it's a great lineup.
Right. And so like, tell me about the process of. You mentioned before, you alluded to it before. I'd like to elaborate on that, where like, you would talk to creators and they'd say, okay, if you give me this, I want it. If you give me this, I want it. If you give me this, I want it. Were there through lines that, that were pretty common, and, and where there's like, okay, if that company is in, I'm in. Did some of that happen too?
I wasn't super active in a ton of those conversations. I wasn't like the seller in all those cases. I sat in on a few of people I had relationships with, because I've been going to conventions for 5 years with Backerkit, running booths and doing live streams with guests and stuff. So I mean, I've been around the block, but overwhelmingly, a lot of this was people were kind of agreeing to it before we even agreed to do it. Like they were just saying, if you do this, we will join you. Like if you do this, people identified that if another company were to get into this crowdfunding business, it should be Backerkit, because they've had such good experiences with the tools that they've used before and after their campaign. They're like, it would be great if we could just do it the whole way through. So I think one of our strict advantages, and I don't mean to like stray from the question too much, is it's pretty full service from conception of the idea. Like I have an idea, I want to build my list, I want to prototype it. Like we have resources and launch marketing tools from the very beginning. Now it leads into the campaign itself, and then it will lead into the pledge management and surveys and backer fulfillment at the end. So it's really a much longer process window than what even Kickstarter offers or some other competitors. It's beginning, middle, and end. So it's very comfortable for creators to have everything under one roof. I think if any of the platforms did that, it would be great.
I guess I'm imagining that this was like a big sell job and like a big, we have an idea. And I imagine if a new player came into this space, right? If someone, a fourth or fifth or sixth or whatever it is, they came in, they have to like kind of start from scratch. Then it's like there's a sell process. It was much different because of you establish a track record. So like in a way, the Backerkit experience isn't very replicable now. You'd have to like get in and do these back end things for years and years in order to mirror how you guys are doing it.
Yeah. So in that way, I'm not going to say it was like easy, or I don't want to humble brag or anything like that. But like what we're talking about, trust, relationship building, setting up proper expectations, and then following through, making promises and then following through with them. It's all very important. And everybody you see on this lineup, and then the next 100 that you'll probably see, we've established that a long time ago. Like there's no new introductions really. There's no new like sell pitches or anything like that. Like it's really just a continuation of a relationship and kind of bringing it to the next level. It's like now we can just do the whole cycle. So yeah, I would say that it was very organic in that way, where there wasn't a lot of pushback. I'm not aware of many people that we even offered it to passed on it if it wasn't for more of a logistical reason, like, oh, well, the wheels are moving on this project. We're going to launch it on this platform still, but we'll consider you for the next one, So it was overwhelmingly positive, and it was very heartwarming to see that, because I know a lot of people, that's decades of hundreds of people through the years, their work kind of all put together to build that trust. So it was a little scary, but also very heartwarming to like prove it and like have an opportunity to like stress that relationship and be like, are we really that close? And it's like, yes, we are. So it was very nice to see the reaction that we got. I was not shocked, but just kind of humbled by it. Like, oh, this is cool. This is special that we can jump into the scene and make things happen really quickly. Because it's a big lineup, and every one of those 30 plus projects is a lot of time and energy and compassion for going both ways, and patience. So it's been very rewarding.
Yeah, and so like you kind of preempted my last question, but that's okay. The future, the 5-year plan, like we're not doing the 5-year plan, right? What we are doing here, it sounds like, is focusing on relationships, focusing on trust, building that community, one person at a time or one group at a time, one project at a time, and come what may, right? And so because you've been, or Backerkit's been in the game for a long time, it's like there's a track, and then the track has, come, and then the track isn't going to like explode into like some crazy direction, but, so it's like there's a trust in your own direction that like, the track has been going for 10 odd years. It will continue to go in a manageable direction. We'll kind of see what comes. Is that kind of the attitude?
I think so. Yeah. And I hope I'm not coming across as like naive or overly romantic, because it is hard work. Like, the relationships and the trust that we have with people is very, very precious, and we don't want to meddle with it. We wouldn't do this if we thought it would have a negative effect on these creators who have spent, in some cases, their lifetime building up to these moments of crowdfunding. So, I mean, there's some big projects. You can look into the history of at least 10, 15 of these projects, and they're over 100K projects. It's how they feed their families. It's how they get to their next project. Like, we don't want to mess with that at all. We just want to continue it and help foster it and grow it. So it took a lot of thought and a lot of consideration and a lot of confidence building, just to be like, we got to make sure we're doing a responsible thing as well, not disrupting people's momentum. So, I mean, we're in it to make projects bigger. We're in it to make people feel better about their launches, more confident about their launches. We want backers to feel more involved and have more of a say in like what happens in a controlled environment that's like back and forth, not just like one-sided. So I think all of those things kind of put together creates what I think is just a really interesting opportunity to just level everybody up and bring in some new players along the way. I think there's just so much potential involved, and one of our biggest fears is just plateauing, or just like kind of getting to a point where we're not iterating. So like I have like no doubt that we're never going to like get to that point, at least internally as a team. We're always trying to figure out what's the next new thing. How can we create the next new thing, or help facilitate in a new way? And if something works really, really well, keeping that baseline really strong, because you don't want to like ignore things that work really well, even if it's kind of simple. It's like, well, everybody does this, so you should do that. But then you can, give yourself some flexibility to experiment as well.
I mean, speaking of the 5 years and not knowing what's going to happen, we've gone through a 2 or 3 years of pandemic at this point, supply chains and that kind of stuff. I think looking at the Kickstarter project from the outside, we're not seeing the mega like the occasional flare of Brandon Sanderson, but like for the most part, there's just not a lot of attention. The project is slowed down, etc. So, I mean, is that how does that affect your business? How did that affect the launch? Because you launched right in the middle of all this stuff. I mean, did that play in? Is it like, well, this model is actually more durable, answering some of the stuff going on? Like, how did that play? How did the new reality play into Backerkit?
Yeah, like, I mean, much like we're talking with crowdfunding, it's just the theme is constantly evolving and changing. Like we're all going forward in a way we've never done in our generation before. You know, we're kind of, you know, the corny thing, everything, you always see it, we're in this together and all that stuff. Like totally, like we're all sick of hearing it, but it's very true. Like we are in it together and we are trying to hit these ebbs and flows together in a way that's sustainable, where we can, like, you know, find some peace and calm between the chaos and stuff like that. So I don't think that was like any kind of blocker for us, like, oh, the world's different, we should probably not take this risk right now or do this thing right now. I don't think that was ever really part of the conversation. Again, it just circles back to, if the creators are ready for it, if they're willing to do it, if they think it's going to enrich their experiences, we're going to give it a go. And enough of them had said it where we're like, I think it's time. There's so many people that want to do this with us that we owe it to them based off our past experience to just do it. So it was very exciting to see that kind of pile up and then get to a point where we have to do that. And to address your part about the state of the world and different, it all boils back to expectation setting. That gives us an opportunity to talk about budgeting more. That gives us an opportunity to talk about manufacturing cycles more, comparative, you know, testing. Like, don't just go to this place because someone loved it. Like, try it out. So there's just a lot of resource and kind of knowledge opportunities there where we can learn, and then we can, you know, and we can align with people that are the experts, and we can teach people like how to navigate all of these things. But there's no point where the amount of stress that we're getting from the world should stop people from doing these projects that are often therapeutic, often like life changing, often bucket list number one. So I think now is the time more than ever to take these risks and be a little bit more bold as a creator as well. So if anybody's listening that's thinking about like crowdfunding or doing something, I would highly like, it's easy for me to say, like, don't just, but just try, you know, just start somewhere, start with friends and family, start with your neighbors, your coworkers, and try and build some interest and let, you know, sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's fast, but I think we need more independent creators than ever, in my opinion, right now, to be sappy.
Well, I mean, I think I'm buddies with AG Porfirio at Van Ryder Games, and I remember he was launching the first Final Girl, and this was like right as things were shutting down. So it's like, should I launch? Should I do whatever?
Right.
And then, but like you said, wheels are turning, and it's hard to kind of slow trains down. So it's like, you know what? Well, let's just see what happens. And ended up being a 2 million plus project or whatever it was. I mean, the second one was, but the first one was successful as well. And it was a total surprise. And I think it was one of those things where the trust in the community plays in, because we were all locked down and we all just want to be part of something, you know, and we happen to be, we're going to get a product at the end of it, but the way they ran it, the way they were open about it, the way there's like, well, I don't know. And they were really human in their interactions. People saw that and they really came together. So I think, you know, we end this on a really optimistic note that, like, even though the world's changing, even though it's scary to go from Kickstarter to other places, there's all this uncertainty and, you know, you throw up your hands and stuff, the value of community and the value of connecting with people, that will guide you through a lot of different issues. And I'm really happy. It's so heartwarming because that's what I believe, but it's such a hard thing to kind of like see it implemented in a company. Right. That's really cool.
Right. And I know right now we're setting the stage and making promises, and we haven't had the time to fulfill them yet. But I would encourage you to just stay tuned and keep an eye on it, and people give us feedback. But, you know, I see it's going to be a really positive thing for the creator community and the backer community. And I just think it's an exciting time. And I think a little bit of competition, or, you know, throwing a wrench in it a little bit, well, I think it'll better all of the platforms, because then we're all going to start, you know, thinking of things and you know, in new ways and exciting ways, and it's all in the service of creators. So I think creators just have more options now, and I think that's a great thing. So we'll go where they want us to go.
And as consumers, just back at $1 level, see what happens.
Exactly.
So speaking of, you know, community, people connecting, where can they connect with Backerkit and find out what's going on?
So you can connect with us, obviously, Backerkit.com. Our socials are just all at Backerkit. We're going to be heading to Gen Con in August. We're actually taking over this room called the First Exposure Playtest Hall. We're just sponsoring the whole room this year because we have so many exciting things to like talk about and so many customers on the dawn of launching something. So if you're going to Gen Con, that's a place you can see us. Probably create a Discord channel for that as well for people to join. We're at the dawn of Discord here. We have it very slowly building with the people that are involved in our crowdfunding platform, but I'm going to start opening up the door to more resource-oriented things for newcomers and stuff like that as the weeks go by. So just stay tuned to backerkit.com, sign up for our newsletters and those announcements. That will be the first place you'll hear about it. But yeah, it should be pretty exciting stuff from a resource point of view as well, and just from a backer point of view, just backing these cool projects and supporting them.
All right, Jason at Backerkit, thank you so much for spending a lot of time. We got into the nuts and bolts, which is what this series is all about. We wish you the best of luck here at Shelf Stories and One Stop Co-op Shop.
All right, appreciate the opportunity. Love the chat. Yeah, you had some really great questions, so I appreciate you hanging in there with me for over an hour.
You can change your mind, you can change the world, people. So until next time, later, everybody.